Formula One's long-awaited return to Imola had something of a different feel to it, and more than just those that the 14-year interval would naturally bring. And we're not talking about the longest straight either, as the Variante Bassa at the end of the lap was removed to increase the stretch coming out of Ravazza on full throttle. The Emilia Romagna Grand Prix was run to a different schedule than the rest of F1's races, obviously discounting the heavily rain-affected Eiffel Grand Prix weekend at the Nürburgring. There was only one practice session available to the teams and drivers, slashing the amount of time available for preparation ahead of qualifying and the race. But how did the teams approach the two-day weekend format, and more importantly, did it improve the racing? The official word for testing the two-day format at Imola was that getting everything from Portugal to Italy would take too much time in just 1 week. But it was also a good way for Formula One to test whether fewer practice sessions actually impacted the race or not. Let's start with how the teams approached the weekend, shall we? So, instead of 2 90-minute sessions on the Friday and another 60-minute session on the Saturday, those in attendance at Imola had just one single 90-minute session to get their heads around the circuit. Since it was on the Saturday morning, it put extra pressure on the teams to cram 240 minutes of running into just 90, and keep the cars in one piece ahead of qualifying. Practice sessions usually find different uses. The first is usually a little bit of a testing ground, giving the drivers a chance to get to grips with the circuit, have a go with different types of tyres, and conduct various degrees of aero work, be it to test new designs or to complete correlation tests to make sure the wind tunnel and simulation tools are delivering the right kinds of figures. FP2 is then usually dedicated to race runs, with the teams trying the car at high and low fuel to understand the tyres more deeply and begin to consider race strategy options. Then FP3 usually takes on a role as a dress rehearsal for qualifying, along with any other final bits of work that the team didn't get to do in the previous 2 sessions. All of that work is a lot to cram into just one session, so each car spent a considerably greater amount of time on the track to fit it all in. Of course, there were still gaps in their knowledge which ensured the race wasn't so much of a foregone conclusion, to a certain degree at least. Of course, the usual suspects were dumped out in Q1, both Haas and Alfa Romeo cars didn't make the cut, and nor did Nicholas Latifi. But the lack of preparation hurt the Racing Point team, and neither Lance Stroll or Sergio Perez made it to the final part of qualifying. Meanwhile, AlphaTauri had shone, and although the team had played down its previous visit to Imola for a filming day, the experience of the circuit will surely have given it a chance to get its eye in. Although filming day running is limited to just 100 km per session, it will still have given the team a chance to pick up on the track conditions, learn what ride heights to run, and how the asphalt might impact tyre wear. In the end, Pierre Gasly qualified an impressive 4th, and while he retired on lap 9 with a water leak, Daniel Kvyat climbed to a spectacular 4th place, suggesting that even if data wasn't collected previously, having some familiarity with the track from a handful of months ago might have given them a slight edge. But the main differences arguably came in the race, and beforehand Pirelli had estimated that the first set of hit stops would come around lap 20 to lap 25, ahead of a projected one-stop strategy. However, it became evident that the tyre wear was a lot higher than initially thought. At one stage, Valtteri Bottas was given a radio call with target -6, i.e. we'll pit you 6 laps earlier than we'd initially planned. That said, Lewis Hamilton did do another 11 laps on the same compound, so... The trio of Grosjean, Russell and Giovinazzi pitted on lap 9, 10 and 11 respectively, all bolting on the hard tyres in the hope of getting to the end of the race, Pirelli having predicted a soft-medium strategy. Then the pack of drivers in the lower reaches of the points came in around laps 13 and 14, ditching their soft tyres for the hardest compound. So that lack of practice meant that the teams had to think on the fly and react to each other and to how the tyre was performing, rather than by consulting the reams of data available from a greater sample set. Although the spiciest element in the race at Imola was introduced late on with the safety car, this still created a mix of strategies in the field, a legacy of having just one practice session. With the big advantage, both Mercedes drivers could pit, but it was less cut and dried in the midfield. A few of the cars pitted while others did not. Sergio Perez, Daniel Kvyat and the 2 McLarens gambled on their opponents' tyres not being able to fire up, but Ricciardo, Leclerc and Albon all stayed out. And although Kvyat made it work, Ricciardo kept track position and was able to find enough life in his tyres to protect 3rd place, bagging a 2nd podium in 3 races. So did the condensed format work? Well, the lack of practice did bring some variance to the mix, with differing pit strategies across the board, as well as some unfamiliarity with the characteristics of the circuit due to missing out on FP1 and FP2. with the AlphaTauri team and Kimi Räikkönen the only drivers to have lapped the track in a Formula 1 car before the race weekend. Despite all this, the notoriously difficult to pass at Imola perhaps didn't show the full potential of the condensed weekend schedule. At a circuit that's more easy to follow and pass at, it might offer a complete different complexion altogether. But we've had the pros, what about the cons? With one fewer day, this gives fans in attendance less chance to see any action. Although that ended up not being a consideration at Imola, given that the race was placed behind closed doors quite late on, it would limit the amount of on-track action during the weekend. Then again, do people really want to sit and watch endless practice sessions? Well, F1's really got a dedicated fan base, and even if the cars were stationary, they'd probably still like to watch it. However, that can be offset with further support categories on the bill, or by adding another F2 or F3 race to the weekend. Fridays will still have value, and it gives F1 a chance to help boost the profile of other series by having them on the set list. Alternatively, the single practice format could be best employed when there's back-to-back races, giving the teams more time to travel and easing the burden on the employees going to every round. With rumours of 2021 consisting of a 23-race calendar, shaving off an extra day for a few weekends a year will give something back to those who helped to make F1 happen. But the bottom line is this: with fewer practice sessions, there's more chance that the teams and drivers will make mistakes, and that'll always help to mix things up a bit.